Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yes, I'm all right. Thank you. I'm all right. Let me do a little intro for the people. Normally on a Friday night, the National Portrait Gallery have a in-person conversation with, but during this current crisis, in lieu of being in person, we are going live. So I am Olivia Rose and I'm a photographer. And this is Maisie Williams, who is an actress, an entrepreneur, and an activist.
It is I.
Also, you just had your birthday, so happy belated.
Thank you.
I know it's rude to ask a woman her age, but how old are you now, Maisie?
I am 23 years old.
Bloomin' heck, that means I must have... What? How old were you when I met you then?
Maybe 20?
Time flies.
21?
You?
I'm not sure. It was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago, wasn't it?
Little while, yeah.
But yeah, I thought that we could have a conversation about creativity and especially about, you know, the kind of process of a person sitting for someone else's camera, because I think that's always it's something that people don't often talk about, and it's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
We've had lots of questions come in from different people, so I thought I'd start us off with one that is very relevant for now.
Okay.
Which is, how have you kept yourself sane, motivated, and creative during lockdown?
Oh, that's like the $1 million question, right? I mean, I think honestly, I don't think I have managed to keep myself with the four sane, motivated, you know, all of those things. I think it's like a lot of pressure to like say that you're gonna like do something incredible with this time, because it was so unexpected and it is such a scary time that it's hard to do that. I mean, like yesterday I was feeling so great and I got loads of work done in the morning, and it's like not like I got a lot of work to do. I've just got a lot of emails to do and things like that. And then afterwards I was like, right, I'm going to sit and like catch up on a load of TV shows. And so like I had a really well-rounded day. And then today I woke up and I was like, I can't bring myself to do anything. I can't find any motivation. Like, I don't want to email anyone. Like, simple things like I can't be bothered to do. And like there was a bunch of things on my watch list, and I literally just sat and watched like RuPaul's Drag Race instead. So I've like
a classic choice, Maisie.
Yeah, and so like I think honestly, just knowing that you're gonna have good days and bad days, and like that's absolutely fine is like the key, and like to not put so much pressure on yourself. It's like it's really hard to be motivated in a time when everything's at a standstill, and like if you're struggling, like that's okay, everyone is. I think
for me it's, you know, those memes that are going around that are saying, if you're not writing the book you always wanted to write right now, what are you doing? And I'm like, I mean, there's already so much pressure on us right now. It's like sometimes people forget that actually, even though life has to go on, this is a crisis. It is really affecting people in a terrible way, you know? I don't think we'll even be able to measure the sort of psychological impact it's had on people until, you know, for many years, until we kind of reflect back on this time. But you know, would you say that you've kind of, well, something I would like to ask you, have you picked up any quarantine obsessions? Is there anything you're doing now that you wouldn't have done before?
Yeah, well, I've been gaming so much.
Really?
Yeah. Like I'm obsessed with Mario Kart. I've been playing that like non-stop. I've been playing Animal Crossing. I feel like a lot of people are playing Animal Crossing right now because it just came out. Or like it came out like the week before we went into quarantine or something. So like everyone's down for it. And then also Minecraft. So I've been playing a lot of Minecraft. That's like really therapeutic.
I didn't know you were a gamer.
Well, no, I wasn't. Neither did I.
So hold on, are you rubbish?
Well, yeah, probably. Like, probably in comparison to, like, actual gamers. But, like, I just like doing it obsessively. And usually I feel like it's a waste of time. And it's actually not, because, like, it's almost quite meditative, like, being able to, like, sit, especially when something like Mario Kart, that's quite like intense, but like when you're playing something like Minecraft, which is basically just like building and digging, it's like very chill.
Yeah.
Like, that can be quite a good thing for the mind to be able to just like calm down and like,
yeah, like an
quite,
achievable goal.
yeah, like very still. But yeah, like otherwise I'm probably like not very good compared to other people, but right now I find that I've got a lot of time to do it, and so I just do it like religiously.
I love that. Maisie's
Yeah.
going to come out the other end of this like a pro gamer.
Yeah, well, I kind of want to start like Twitch streaming, because like that's a whole career in itself. Like maybe that's what I'll do now.
Another
What about
career
you? Have you got
Why
any
not?
like any quarantine obsessions?
Well, do you know, I love cooking, so it's been quite a good time to sort of flex my chef skills.
Yeah.
But how many weeks in are we now? 3.5 weeks in, and I'm so sick of cooking. I think that's the thing I miss the most. It's the little things. I miss going for a coffee, you know.
Yeah,
I'm drinking a coffee now, and it's delicious because I have a French press, but you know, I just don't want to diss my coffee because it is delicious. But
yeah.
you know, it's just those little things of that interaction with a you know, with just a one human would be nice. So
no, for real, it is like those little things you don't realize that they mean so much to you, or rituals that you don't get to have anymore.
No, totally. And I think actually, you know, I think for creative people, quarantine is quite an quarantine. It's a strange word even in itself, but you know, it's quite an interesting place because I think a lot of creative people do spend a lot of time on their own. And I think that is not necessarily the thing that changes for creatives. You know, it's more that, and especially for someone like me who is a portrait photographer, you know, my thing is people. You know, it's just so bizarre to, you know, even for us to be doing things that are, you know, over the phone and everyone's getting on Zoom and everyone's doing all of the kind of live. It's hard for me because I feel almost like sometimes that's a tease. You know, to my mum on FaceTime, I'm like, oh, I can see you now and I want to give you a hug, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've definitely kind of found some creative motivation after a couple of weeks. But I went through, what I was saying at the beginning was I was kind of on a half-day roller coaster. I used to be able to have, you know, maybe do about 30 minutes productive work, then half a day of being okay, and then the anxiety would hit me and it would just, you know, day would be over by Prime Minister's speech at 5 o'clock. So I've had to turn the news off. So
yeah, no, that's too much. That's just like rolling pain.
Exactly. So Maisie, we first shot together a million years ago for ASOS magazine.
We did,
and it was a fabulous shoot.
And you gave me a fringe because I didn't have a fringe. And then we were like, right, let's get the clip-in fringe. And now...
exactly. And now, I mean, I am going to take personal responsibility for that fringe, Maisie.
You should. You really should.
I think you should tag me in all pictures as your bangs.
I was looking at those pictures and I was like, I've got to get a fringe.
Yeah.
And here I am.
What? This is quite a good lead-in, actually, because I wanted to show you 4 pictures of yourself that have been taken by different photographers.
Okay.
And I noticed when I was pulling the pictures off that actually you have quite an amazing hair story. Like, how many different styles have you had?
So I have had a couple.
So I've picked 4 different portraits of you by 4 different photographers. 3 are male, 1 is female. And for me, these were 4 that kind of show completely different sides of Maisie. So I'm going to turn my screen. This is the first one, which is by Miles Aldridge. And I believe that it's actually part of the National Portrait Gallery collection.
Yeah.
Then we have this by Rankin.
Yeah.
Which I think is I love this one. This reminds me of you. Then there is this fabulous image by a photographer called Olivia Rose. I'm biased, but I think she's the best of the lot.
Me too.
And then there is this by Ben Toms for Jay. And I just wondered if you could tell us, here's all the 4 together.
Yeah.
You know, what happens on a shoot? Are these 4 different Maisies we're looking at?
Yeah, I'd say so. 4 very different girls at 4 different stages of my career.
Yeah.
And and like 4 different, like, I don't know, I just was like very confident in some and like very naive in others, and like actually maybe quite like I'm not in a good place. I mean, it's quite hard to look at the top left one that we did for the national, that went to the national, because I wasn't really in a good place then, and I feel like I can really see it in the picture. Like I feel like, because this was such an amazing opportunity, and like the shoot, you know, everyone was so excited that we were going to get to do this, and like I was in LA for it, and we like had to bring all the dresses with us, and we did it like the day after the Emmys or some award show. And like I find those things so difficult because you're just having pictures taken of you from all angles. So that was the day before, and then we went into this shoot, and I just like I wasn't feeling like very good in my own skin. And like, so when I look at that picture, like people are quite moved by that picture, and I've had like a really nice response to it, but when I look at it, I can see the girl that I was then, and I think I was definitely like very timid and just like quite insecure, really.
Do you think it's or a better way to ask is, how on a day like that, when you go into a shoot not feeling your best, but it's an obligation, how do you do it? How do you get yourself into a place where you can, you know, kind of even complete the photo shoot? Because I know that in a lot of ways, you know, it's kind of impossible to fake that stuff. So
yeah, I don't know, like, you know, sometimes you can really rely on like a photographer to bring you through it, and someone to like really connect with you through the lens, and like someone can really sense something in you and like want to like, you know, make you feel better. But I think like that was just a very, very busy shoot, and so there was so many of us to get through that you're like in for like 2 hours and then you're out, and it was like one look and then we were done, so there was no warming up to it. So I think with that one I did really struggle to like let it go. But you know, sometimes that's just time, really, I think, and getting to know a photographer.
And I think actually, you know, now you've said what sort of state of mind you were in when the picture was taken, I do feel like I can see it as well. There's kind of almost a sadness to you.
There is.
But I would say that that's documenting that moment. And so although it might be hard for you to look back at that, you know, that is a place that you've actually come to somewhere else. You know, I'm assuming that the one with the pink hair, the Rankin, is the most recent of the photo shoots.
Yeah, it is.
And for me, that's like, you've just got this. I think I said it to you. Do you remember when you dyed your hair pink and I was completely obsessed?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, you're so sexy. Oh my God, I can't cope with it. Like, this picture epitomizes that for me. It's so sexy. You've got these eyes and you're like this cheeky thing. Like, was that a different mood?
Yeah, I think Rankin worked so quickly, and I think like as an actress, usually you know that your best take is in like the first or second take, because it's like fresh and you're like there. And like Rankin like he shoots a look for like no more than 5 minutes, and even that is like he I think that particular shot was like in 30 seconds we got that shot.
Like bish bash bosh done.
And he goes, we've got it, and I'm always like, no, I literally was like, no, we haven't. And I went around and looked at the monitor and I was like, oh God, maybe we do.
Yeah, I love that.
And there's something about his energy. I think he's like a very empathetic person, and I think he like takes a lot of pride in that as like quite an empathetic like photographer. And so I think he knows, like, you sit and you like go over the look and like you find the outfit and you do the hair and makeup for so long that by the time you get on set you're like, right, let's do it. And so he shoots it so fast, and so for that, I think in my life I was like, it's the most recent one, I was like a lot more comfortable in my own skin. I had like the hair of my dreams, and so there's just a lot of things that I liked about that shoot.
And actually it leads me quite nicely into one of the questions that we got, which is, do you speak to the model for their creative input on the day? So for you, I'm assuming does the photographer talk to you for creative input on the day? And if so, does that help to build a better synergy between the photographer and the subject? Like how often would you say that you are involved in that kind of pre-shoot process?
I'm like never involved, really.
Would you like to be involved?
Yeah.
Because I always find that it's kind of the same with I'm going off piste a bit here, but it's kind of the same with music videos. When you're pitching on a music video for an artist, it blows my mind that the artist is not part of those initial conversations.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, we're trying to portray a person. And I do find it strange that, you know, so rarely as a photographer do I get to speak to my subject before I shoot.
Yeah.
Do you think that would make it easier?
Definitely. I think like, because the other thing that people always do is like, what music do you want to listen to? And I think the music sets the tone of the entire shoot.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, what music do you
about to go and have your picture taken by, we had a very interesting question in that is, do you feel as a woman that it's a different experience when you're photographed by a man or someone trans or non-binary? Does gender play a part in the experience? I'll just give you a really deep one there, shall I?
I don't know. I guess, yeah, it does. But it's like not anything that the photographer does. It's more just like my own confidence.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, but listen, every man is so different, and every woman is so different, and like the way that they work is so different, and you know, so maybe the answer is no, it's not, it doesn't matter. It's more just about like if it's like someone that I can really vibe with or not. And sometimes I find, you know, actually I've never found a female photographer intimidating, but I have found male photographers intimidating, and like that's always difficult because if you're intimidated by the person that's like shooting you, then you feel like you need to like do well and please them, and like then you're just nervous and anxious, and like that's like never makes a good picture. And I can say that I've never felt like anxious like that when there's a woman shooting me, but I haven't felt like that when it's like with every man that shot me. There's just some people that are like that. So
it's more about the sort of personality behind the genitals. Can I say that?
yeah.
I've said it now and we're live. So how many female photographers have you been photographed by? I'd be interested to know.
I'd say maybe like 5.
And how many photo shoots do you reckon you've done?
Probably like 30.
It's not as bad odds as I thought it might be, actually.
No.
It's not great either.
It's not great. It's not great at all, actually. And I feel like the concepts are like so much more interesting with women as a woman, you know, maybe for men, the male concepts are far more like interesting.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, I think that there's just like so much more.
Because it's a different way of seeing. You know, I think the second half of that question for us was, Olivia, the same, does the energy change when the gender of the subject changes? And for me, I think that's very true. You know, I spent quite a long time only wanting to shoot men because that's, you know, what I was sort of naturally attracted to. And that, you know, the nature of aesthetic, the nature of photography is that you turn your lens on something you think is attractive in some way, even if it's a desolate landscape, you know, in some way you find that attractive. And actually for me, I had to really kind of learn to turn my lens on women. And I wonder, this is with years of reflection now, I wonder if that's because in some way I would never have turned my camera on myself. And I think there's some psychology, I'm sure my therapist would agree with me, that there's some psychology about me not wanting to put the female form in front of my lens. But actually yours was one of the shoots that stood out to me because I really enjoyed shooting you. And that was a new experience, you know, it was a new way of finding a person attractive without that sort of additional, you know, I don't actually fancy you, Maisie, unfortunately.
Ugh.
I know, I've heard you're taken anyway. So, but yeah, you know, like it was a really interesting kind of symbiosis, you know, and I think part of that for me was because I just didn't expect you to be how you were. And it was just so fun and easy, you know. Mm-hmm. There was something I felt like I was like, okay, I feel a bit like I've known her for ages, you know, and you know, I find you so spectacularly interesting anyway. You're really great in front of the camera, but you know, it was just this moment where actually I thought, you know what, as a woman photographing a woman, there's almost like an empowerment to being in that situation.
Yeah.
you know, like sisters doing it for themselves, you know.
For sure. And I think as well, like where you are like a portrait photographer, and for me, like a lot of the worry is like, what's my feet doing when my face is doing this, and what's my arms doing when my back's doing that. And like I think where you really do want to just like you want the like character to come through, and like you just like the photos that you want to achieve are something that like I connect really well with, and like it's the sort of imagery that I really like to look at. And like I think that I feel a lot more comfortable with like portraiture versus like super high fashion, you know, like these.
I think actually that's quite an interesting little point to touch on, because I do think it's almost like it's like when you said earlier about the music can make the vibe on a shoot. I'm so with you. For me, photography is like 2% the camera and 98% the vibe of the shoot.
Yeah.
And I think with fashion, that starts to get a little bit diluted, because there are so many other things that come into play that are so important, you know, even down to the garment, you know, so that dictates how to shoot you, you know, like even, you know, if we need to see the entire garment, then we need Maisie standing, or we need a full length, you know, whereas actually at that moment, the smile might be the thing.
Yeah, I feel that completely. There's just like so many other moving parts, and it can just like get so overwhelming that you look back at the pictures and your face is like looking so sad and confused. but the dress is looking perfect.
Another question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Has there ever been a photographer that's pushed you out of your comfort zone from an identity perspective, seeing you in a different way to how you'd like to project yourself? And was that a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, I think like that shoot that you've got, that day's shoot that I did with Ben Toms, that was like probably one of like that was like the first like proper editorial that I'd ever done. And like, I'm probably like 15 or 16 in that picture. And so
going back, hold on, sorry, what?
So I was like really new to the, like I got my nose pierced. I haven't got that anymore. But I was like, I mean, I've always been like a scruffy like person, but I was like proper scruffy kid then. And they had all these like massive suits, and I was like, oh God, like this is a bit, like, I don't know. I've never seen myself like this. I've never really like dressed like this. And then they had these really cool trainers, and it was like a really high fashion shoot, but like I connected really well with the clothes, and like you don't always get that. And so I like really felt like I was someone new, and we had like a lot of control. Like a lot of that was like portraits, and so that particular picture, like we had a table and I could rest my arms on it, which meant like I could relax, and we had like some good like harrowing music on, and it felt like just felt like really natural, really good. And then like when the photos came out, it was like around the time of, was it the 2016 election? No, it's probably before then, probably in the run up to it, maybe in like 2014. But yeah, and it was like so many protests for like young people to be able to vote, and like I wasn't even of age to vote then, and it was just, I don't know, it felt like a really like emotionally charged time. And, like I think like the way that I looked, this like young girl in these like big suits, like on the front of days, like it was, it was quite, it just like, it made me feel, it was a statement, and it made me like look at myself differently.
And that's interesting. And oh, I really like that, made you look at yourself differently. I mean, at that time, okay, so you're, you know, relatively unique in the sense that you've got, you know, like your photo shooting career started so early on, when really you were just a baby, you know. So I'm interested to know, you know, from, and I suppose we touched on that when we looked at the 4 pictures, but you know, how different is your experience of a photo shoot now? I mean, besides the experience of having done them, do you think your age is helping you or hindering you, making you more confident, less confident?
I think I'm only getting more and more confident, which is good. And like I feel like I belong more and more like as it goes on.
Yeah.
Like I grew up, my only exposure to like fashion and to like fashion editorials was like America's Next Top Model.
Yeah.
So
smile with your eyes.
right, so I had this like image of like these models and like how it needed to be like,
Yeah.
and actually that's like quite far from how it can be.
Yeah.
And so I always felt like I didn't really fit and I didn't really belong. But the older I get and the more confident I get, the more I'm like, yeah, I deserve to be on the cover of this magazine, and like they want my face and they want me for who I am and like the words that I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
And so if I'm like putting on this thing and I'm like, this isn't gonna work because I'm not a model and this outfit makes me look like ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like I feel more comfortable to be like, no, this like I don't want to look this way.
Yeah.
And I feel like better about speaking up about that sort of thing now. And like ultimately that just makes you feel more confident in the shoot if you're like, if you look the way you want to look.
So do you think there's been times when you haven't necessarily felt able to say that you kind of, well, actually there's a question that's sort of on this theme, which is there a time when you haven't connected emotionally with a photographer or with the sort of concept of the shoot, but have still managed to pull off an amazing set of pictures?
You see, I think it's interesting because I have hated the pictures but had a really good time on the day.
Yeah.
And then I've like not really had a very good time on the day, but then the photos have come out and I've been like, wow, they really did something. You know, it wasn't what I thought we were going to do and it wasn't what I was trying to do, but like we did something cool.
Yeah.
And I'm like I'm very forgiving of like the work that I do, and I'd say I'm pretty proud of like most things that I'm a part of. But yeah, I don't know that they necessarily like where I haven't connected with someone, I've then been like, oh, this doesn't make any sense, because actually I've had the complete opposite before. So
I find that as well. It's a bizarre thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm absolutely convinced, and obviously because I shoot on film, I don't see the images until I've had them processed. But sometimes I walk away from a shoot absolutely convinced that I know exactly what the fucking killer shot was.
Yeah.
And then I look back and I'm like, what? You know, it's some picture that I like almost accidentally took, you know, that is the best picture of the day.
Yeah.
It's a really weird thing that happens, you know, like, and sometimes, you know, kind of answering that same question from the photographer's perspective, I find that sometimes if I can't engage with my subject, with the person that I'm photographing, that is its own thing in itself. Sometimes, you know, it's kind of almost like that image that we were looking at before, where you looked at it and felt, you know, it was difficult to look at because you see a certain thing in yourself. It's like sometimes that's what is meant to come out of the shoot, you know.
Yeah.
It's almost like a disengagement as opposed to a engagement, because that can say as much about someone's authentic self as a really strong connection.
Yeah.
I often think that about fashion, especially because I know there's a lot of fashion photographers, and for me this is a completely alien way of thinking or working, you know, who will, you know, the model's not even allowed into the studio until it's their moment, and then they're kind of thrust in, loads of lights, you know, this whole setup, 100 assistants. But that's, you know, we all have to have these different ways of working, because otherwise every image would feel the same, you know. And there's just as much worth to an image where someone feels very uncomfortable as there is to one where someone feels very comfortable, I think. So another question for us: when are we going to collaborate again?
As soon as we're allowed in the same room, baby.
Literally, as soon as we're allowed out of the house.
Yeah. As soon as I've tweezed my eyebrows.
Oh my god! I mean, beauty issues. I'm quite well known for my long nails, and they are nude. They're naked.
It's a nightmare.
It is a nightmare.
I
The
have
beard, I tell you, it's all
I
all
have
happening.
like gel polish on my toes, but I like hadn't got them done and I can't soak it off, so I had to like cut my toenails, but I've still got this gel polish on, and so now my toenails look like this big.
Yeah, when you get that kind of the tide mark.
Yeah, the tide mark of
yeah.
nail polish on the foot. Nightmare.
So is there anything that makes a photo shoot stand out? Maybe beyond even the photographer? Is there like a photo shoot situation that you could walk into that has made you feel like, oh, this is something different?
Honestly, it's like good music.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's styling and music. But like, if I really connect with the stylist and like the photographer and like the vibe, that's it. That is it.
Yeah.
And I say stylist because they have such a big, they have like such a handle over like how you can feel in something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like sometimes you can like get there and be like, this is going to be great, and a stylist can make you feel like trash.
Yeah. That's really interesting actually, because you know, and as a photographer, that's an interesting thing to hear, because you know, like that's so often the bit of the day, you know, when the talent comes in, and then you know, you guys are normally ushered into hair and makeup straight away and sat by the clothes, and that's the time when normally I'm setting up lighting or doing photography things in the other room. And that is actually the moment at which I find you can lose your talent before they've even had a chance, you know. And I think especially with women, you know, because we've been so programmed after so many years of, you know, society telling us to care only about our looks and nothing else. Our looks and getting married, those two fabulous things. You know, that actually I'd never really thought about the fact that, you know, maybe in those situations it's the kind of moment where, you know, especially as a female photographer, you know, you could kind of step in and make sure that your talent's not being bulldozed by someone, you know.
Yeah, totally. I think that's really important, because as well, like I'm so sensitive, like, because everyone's got their assistants, right? But like everyone treats their assistants so differently, and quite often you spend, as like the model or as like the subject, like you spend like the most time with the assistants because they're the first ones there being like, right, let's cleanse your skin, or like the last one there at the end of the day, like. And so you spend so much time with these people, and then like when the artists, like the makeup artist, the hairstylist, like the stylist come in, and it's like an ego show. And like quite often then it's like a completely different person to the photographer, and with the photographer they're like, you know, one thing, but you witness all of it. And like I'm so sensitive to that, and it's just like when you see someone's really ugly side, like you're like, I don't feel comfortable like being vulnerable around you because you're scary.
No, I completely get it. I think for me that's you've kind of really eloquently put why I am so staunchly analog, because there's something that I say over and over again, and I'm going to say it again now on this live, which is when you are shooting digitally, it is I have no problem with digital photography, that's the first thing I'm going to say, but when you're shooting digitally, there is a laptop in the room, and when there's a laptop in the room, there is a crowd of people stood around it. And when there is a crowd of people stood around a laptop in front of the person I'm shooting, every picture cannot be amazing. Out of the 100 you take on a day, 10 will be amazing. The other 90, you might be picking your nose. It's the moment where you did that with your face, you know, like you've got to cut out the deadwood. But when you're shooting digitally, you're allowing the whole room to see these weird pictures that you'd never use in the edit, and the minutiae of someone's face. You know, if you're looking over and the stylist is like looking at the laptop like that, how must that make you feel?
Yeah, that's so true. It does. And like you just feel so anxious, and like when they use the test shots, and then like everyone goes away and like sits and looks at the monitor, and they're all like scratching their chin and like looking at each other like, and everyone's speaking in like hushed voices, and you're just there like alone. Maybe with one lighting guy being like, so did you come from far?
Yeah.
You're just there like, yeah, not far, just East London. Oh yeah, let's do that. And then everyone comes back and like someone fixes your hair and like does your makeup or like pulls your outfit. But yeah,
and then,
like that
then have
is...
those conversations where they talk about you in the third person, where we're all stood at the end of a cove going, do you think she needs? And you're stood there like, hello, I'm a person.
I'm right here. Yeah, that is like overwhelming. And so like I always used to get, I just feel like I really trust people who shoot on film though, because the one shoot that I've done that I hated was digital, and like I felt like I'd seen all of the images at the end of the day and was like, cool, I know how this is going to be. And then like the cover, I was like, I hate it, this is like not it. And then so afterwards I was like so like worried, and I would be like, right, we have to look at the images, like we have to make sure this happen. And then I would have loads of shoots with people that shot on film and be like, oh no, we can't see them. But I just feel like you know what it's like you know that you like, if you're not sure, get another role. Like I've always loved the film shoots that I've done. I've never, you know, they've never been short of pictures, they've never been like, I think because there is that care and that time, like we have to make sure we get these because we can't see them, versus like shooting a million shots a minute.
But you know, I completely agree with you on that. I think it's you know, harking back to what you said about how Rankin shoots as well. You know, I think it all kind of points to a sort of creative confidence, and I think especially when I'm, the kind of easiest example is when I'm shooting musicians. For me, like, you know, often people say to me, because people are still not used to seeing film cameras, you know, like sometimes it's the first time they've ever seen a camera like mine, you know, when I'm doing a shoot. People say to me like, what's that, why do you do it? You know, and to musicians I say, well look, it's like having the band come in as opposed to making it, you know, on a keyboard. Nothing wrong with either, but for me it's about the kind of real experience. And I think there is a certain confidence that comes along with the fact that, you know, every time you click the camera it's going to cost you £5 or the client £5, you know, so you better, you know, it's almost like, instead of saying, okay, we'll take 1 million pictures, to the point where Maisie is so bored that she couldn't even smile if we made the best joke in the world, you know, and then hopefully we can mack it together at the end. Those words, they're like, it's like Satan's walked into the room if somebody says, well, we can just mack it together at the end. I'm like, no, you know, especially when it's like a bit of tape on the floor. Oh, we'll just take it. No, we're here physically. Let's pull the tape off the floor. You know, I think there's a lost art of not fixing mistakes at the end, and the art is getting it right in the studio, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think also like that time to wind the film is so like, it's a minute to be like, right, like blink, breathe, you know, fix that thing, like.
And you know, like what you just said, that's almost my trick. Probably shouldn't say this, but
no, you know, people love to hear this. What a trick.
Well, that is my trick, you know, because like I said earlier, you know, as soon as someone turns the camera on your face and says, okay, let's start, you know, immediately you're doing, you know, all of that. But it's those moments in between when the role is being changed so often, you know, because I will physically turn my back on my subject. I say, you know, 1 sec, changing my role, you know, so they can pick up their phone or, you know, walk over to the window. And it's the moment when the role is loaded, and my assistants know this, I creep back, you know, I never say, okay, we're starting again. And that's why so often the first or second image on a roll for me is always my favorite, because it's the moment when I've just caught you and you were, you know, I'm shooting a portrait, but really you were looking at your phone and you just received a message from someone you like. So you know, and all of that is so important.
That's lovely.
Don't anyone use that. Please.
Don't you dare.
Yeah, don't you dare. So, okay, you said that every now and again there are pictures of yourself that you hate. What makes you hate a picture of yourself?
It's like, it's stuff that other people don't even pick up on. It's just like your own insecurities. I mean, I could list them.
No, I'm not going to make you go that far.
But no, I think there's like certain like things about your posture, about like your like facial expressions, about lines that you have on your face, like dark circles, or like sometimes it's like yeah, I don't know. You just like have, actually, usually when I don't like a picture, it's because I can see in my eyes that I am like, I don't feel good.
Yeah.
I don't like how I feel. I don't like who I am.
Yeah.
And so it's always to do with like on the day. And on the day you're like, oh, I'm like posing and like this is working, like it's working. But like I'll always see it in my eyes. And I'm like, oh no, you just were not feeling beautiful, or like, yeah, you weren't feeling it at all. And so that's usually like what I dislike the most, because I can like be making a bit of a goofy face, but know that on the day I was like having the time of my life.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, I don't mind. Like, I forgive that. Like, you know, I'm not going to beat myself up about that.
I'm pretty sure we did some of those.
Right. And you look back and you're like, yeah. You're like, I'm not mad about it, because like that is me. That is like a part of me that like people don't get to see, because you're always trying to be like,
yeah.
It's like sometimes it's nice to not have that, but like only
it's like
when
getting the authentic kind of, you know, when people really laugh. And nobody looks good when they really laugh, you know. No. You know, but that moment is so amazing and so beautiful, you know. That's a moment that you've kind of got to see past the double chins and the, you know,
you've just got to like
enjoy it.
Yeah, you find it infectious and you smile when you see those pictures.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, a couple more questions before we finish our live. This has come in from one of my best friends who had the unfortunate experience of being the tall, leggy blonde when we grew up. So when I was a budding photographer, I basically, I mean, the things I have made this girl do, I tell you, she's had a beard painted on her face with mascara. All sorts of things. But her question is, has your mum ever been worried that you might not have the chance at becoming the Prime Minister as a result of you getting topless for a shoot?
I have never been topless for a shoot. Have
I? I love how you have to think about it.
But I wouldn't want to be Prime Minister.
That was the bit I wasn't expecting. I love that. Are you sure? I think you'd kick some butt.
Yeah, I would, but like
maybe in your 40s.
I'll see how I'm feeling then.
Okay, fine. I'd vote for you.
Good.
But on the subject of nudity, because that's something that comes up a lot for women, really. It's very rare that you see a man nude. That's something I'm working on. Watch this space.
Oh, good.
But, you know, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like that's just exploitative? Do you feel like it can be artistic? You know, what's your feeling on it?
I think, like, people who are comfortable with their body naked and, like, take pictures nude a lot, like, just feel very comfortable in their own skin, and, like, I'm not mad about it.
Yeah.
So I think it can be, like, exploitative, but I think there are a lot of people that are happy to like do it themselves, so in that case it's like not a problem. I never have, because like quite often you get like a concept and you'll see like a couple of pictures on the concept of like a girl in her bra or something, and you'll be like, you know, but it's all about on the day, I think. I'd never be like, oh, I'm happy to take my shirt off like before I've met the photographer or before I've like been on set. And like you do it a lot in film, you know, like you. Oh wait, actually I did, didn't I? I had that nude scene on Game of Thrones. Oh yeah,
that was chestnut.
Yeah, so yeah, but with that, I concealed a lot. I think I wanted to protect myself. I didn't feel good. Like I didn't want to show everyone everything. It's all personal, isn't it?
Well, 100%. And I mean, I'm assuming in that situation, God knows how many people were on set.
Yeah.
You know,
people are so good about it though. It's not the people on set, it's about the millions of people that are going to watch.
I didn't even think about that.
On set is like not a big deal, because quite often, well, I mean, this is my experience and I'm not speaking on behalf of every woman ever, but quite often if you're like, I felt like everyone else was way more nervous than I was.
Yeah.
Everyone else was like, oh my God, do not make her feel bad about taking her top off. Like, turn away. Do not look
Everyone's
at her.
walking on, treading on thin ice.
Yeah, right. Everyone is just like being so just being so on it with like being a good person and not being like a creepy man, you know.
Yeah.
Everyone is like,
Yeah.
and meanwhile you're just there like, ooh, booby.
It's funny, isn't it? Because, you know, like, in the one hand, you know, you've got to keep some things to yourself, but on the other hand, boobs are boobs.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's like, on the day was like fine, but it's personal, and like if I feel good taking my shirt off one day, I might not feel good taking my shirt off the next day, and like just because I do it once doesn't mean I'm going to do it again.
Yeah.
And like I think that's just, you know, that's just the way it has to be respected. And I think any girl posting like nude pictures of themselves, like, girl, you do it.
All power to
I'm
you.
here for it. I'm like, wow, my body doesn't look like that.
You know what? I do the same thing. I look at it and, you know, there's a part of me that's like, oh, I really want to, maybe I should.
Yeah, I'm like in the mirror, like.
But then I do worry that it's some weird, gratuitous, I don't know, it's complicated, isn't it?
It is.
I do admire people who have that sort of confidence and that sort of don't give an F attitude, you know, because that does in a lot of ways feel quite empowering to me. But you know, I do think there are other ways to do that than sort of necessarily show your flesh. And I think the kind of problem with it is that for so long that has been so taken advantage of, you know. And I think that's given actually the sort of nude photograph of a woman a bad name, in a way that maybe it doesn't need to, you know, because nobody, you know, I'm assuming that if you looked at a painting, you know, a beautiful painting of a nude goddess, you know, nobody feels some weird sordid sexual attraction to, well, I'm sure somebody does, but the majority of people wouldn't feel some, you know, some kind of way about it. And I do think it's a shame actually it's almost been taken away from us. You know, because also, you know, what does that mean? You know, people really want to look into what that means if you got your baps out for a picture, you know. So
it's confusing, and I think like we're just, I mean, I feel like everyone who's ever existed has probably been like, whoa, we're in a really interesting time of like humanity right now. But I do genuinely feel like that. And you know, I think when I get to the end of my career, I'll look back and be like, oh, we were in that phase and then it went to that phase and then it was all okay. But like right now, you don't know what it's going to be like in 20 years time. But right now, like everyone's like horrified at like a nudie Instagram pic, you know, or like furious about you know, having to censor nipples. So there's like the two sides of it here.
Instagram nipple censoring,
right. You know, how's that going to look in 20 years time? What's going to happen there?
I mean, who knows where we're going to be in 20 years time. We are coming to the end of our time together, Maisie, because I actually have to go on and do a big gay quiz with all of my gay friends after this.
It's fun.
It ties us right back into RuPaul's Drag Race, which I like as a theme for this.
That's what I'm going to go do.
I have one deep question and one very silly question, my favourite one that we got.
Okay.
The deep one is, what's the future of art, acting, photography after COVID-19? Do you think anything's going to have changed? Your thinking face is the best.
I honestly don't think. No, I don't think things are going to change. I honestly think people are going to want to work like together more. Like, I don't think that people are going to do anything anymore remotely, particularly not in the creative arts. I think people are just going to want to do more like together. This is going to inspire, like, I think a whole like array of movies and music and film and photos that are just like about human contact and that are visceral and like real and emotional. I think it's going to just really spark like yeah, people are just going to want to touch each other again.
Do you know what? I think there's something really lovely about, I always think that in these crises, actually, it's creative people who save the world at the end of it. Because what we need is to laugh and to cry and to feel something and to know that everyone else is feeling that same thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, not to put too much pressure on the likes of us, but, you know, time to go and make something that we can watch, Maisie, please, at the end of this. And my final question for you, which is just so brilliant, from Amelia Bell: snog, marry, avoid, a Scotch egg, a pork pie, and a sausage roll.
Okay, marry a Scotch egg. That's unpopular opinion, but
Really?
I love Scotch eggs.
I'd avoid. You're going to marry.
A lot of people would. A lot of people do. But this is why you've got to invite me to your parties, because I will hoover up the Scotch eggs.
Perfect. Yeah, the ones that normally get left there.
I'm all over it. If I get to a party late, there is ample food for me because no one's eating the Scotch eggs.
All the stuff no one else wanted. Okay, so snog and avoid.
What were the other two? Sausage roll and
a pork pie.
I would avoid the pork pie.
Really? That's the one I'd marry?
Well, this is why we
pastry.
It's okay, like we can like cohabit because we'll eat the bits that the other person doesn't.
I'll have the pork pies.
I'll never eat your pork pies.
and then hold on, we're both snogging the sausage roll.
We're both snogging the sausage roll.
It sounds like a party I want to go to, maybe.
That sounds like great fun. Right, me, you, after COVID-19.
Yeah, me, you, a camera, a Scotch egg, a pork pie, and a sausage roll. We'll make it happen.
I love that.
All right, my love. Thank you so much for talking to me this evening.
Thank you. What
Have
fun.
a lovely rest of your weekend.
Will do. I hope everyone's enjoyed.
I hope they have too. Lots of love.
Have a lovely evening. Great weekend. We'll speak soon.
Yes, we'll speak soon. Bye,
Bye.
babe. Bye.
Bye.